One of us. One of us. One of
Great showing. You guys suck and you cheated.
Oh, we're recording? I didn't know we were recording.
It is the biggest transfer or free agent signing in the history of the United States in any sport.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's edition of Ride the Pine. I am your host today, Kenny Hutton. I'm here with Cameron May and Adam Freeman. What's up, boys? I hope everybody had a great holiday.
It was fantastic, except for the fact that holidays on a Monday suck. Like, that has to be the worst day for holidays.
For real.
I think next year we should do, like, Tuesday, Wednesday. Let's make it in the middle of the week to really mess everybody's schedule up.
Did you actually know that it's Tuesday, Wednesday next year? Or
Yeah, I looked it up. I had to look it up for work, so I knew it was.
Look, smart people like me will take 3 days of vacation and get like 12 days off. So
Yeah, that's the plan, for sure.
Well, my work assigned us to take ETO, so that was super nice of them.
Nice. They actually did something good for you for once. That's great.
I hate being told when to take my time off. Shouts to you, unnamed employer.
All right, before we get ourselves into trouble, let's jump into sports. Big weekend for college football.
the biggest.
The biggest. Starting on Thursday. But we're going to start with the New Year's Six games that really were not that interesting. Let's go to the Fiesta Bowl first. Out in Arizona, Oregon, and Liberty played an 11 o'clock game, local time, on Saturday, right? And there was nobody in attendance, one of the best things ever, and they knew that Oregon was going to stomp them 45-6. Any shocking notes or points of interest from this?
I'm just shocked that Liberty was actually able to have any fans. I thought they were all unable to leave the state of Virginia because of their roles in the January 6th protest. So very shocked that they actually had anybody there. And just why do we continue to play this stupid game of like the G5 gets into the biggest bowls of the year?
Oh, just wait till next year when they're automatically into the playoff.
That shouldn't happen. Shouldn't happen at all.
Can't wait to let Liberty play against Alabama and get absolutely curb stomped and turn that game off in the first half.
Has there been a G5 that's actually succeeded in the New Year's Six? I was trying to think of that the other day.
I technically think Boise is a G6, but...
Oh, yeah, the G6, whatever.
Or G5, sorry.
Like a G6.
That's been almost 20 years since they've been relevant.
Yeah, but I'm talking since they switched over to this model where it's, the two national championship or the two semifinal games and the four other big bowls. I can't think of a team that has actually won that's a G5.
No. I don't think any of the G5 conference champions actually won their bowl game either.
That's crazy. The one thing that I would say is, and maybe not even say it, but did Bo Nix make a statement with what he's able to do or what he could be able to do in the NFL?
No.
He could beat up a team that's slightly above a high school level.
But not even that, though. I mean, he finished the year with a 78% completion percentage, which set the record in the NCAA. I forget how many total touchdowns. I want to say it was 38 total, 31 passing, something like that. I don't know. To me, I think he has potential. Honestly, watching him play, I don't know if I would put him ahead of Caleb Williams, but I don't see him being much worse. I don't think that Caleb Williams is the best quarterback in the draft.
No, we'll get there.
Yeah, mainly just because of his personality. I think it's going to kill him. But, I mean, honestly, I bet you Bo Nix is like Jake Locker, that he has a great end of the season, great end of his career, gets drafted in the, whatever high numbers. I think Locker went number 10 or number 9 to Tennessee and didn't do anything with the NFL. Now, he still got drafted. He still got first-round pay, all that good stuff. So he made a payday out of it. But I kind of think that Bo Nix goes down that path.
I see a scenario. I mean, for Bo Nix, and I'm not dumping on the young man because I think he's a very good college quarterback. for him to be successful at the next level, he needs to go somewhere that's got a quarterback already.
I agree.
He needs to go to a Baltimore or a throughout any number of teams that really don't truly need a quarterback and they can let him develop. A Jordan Love type situation. I'm not saying
that would probably be. I mean, honestly, he'd be a great fit for the Rams.
I'll say slot in right behind.
Let Matthew Stafford finish a year or so this year and next year, and then come in behind Stafford.
I mean, I see them going after a quarterback, but I think they might go for a late round quarterback, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so let's go to the other curb stomping of the weekend, and this one was absolutely painful. I walked into a restaurant when it was in the middle of the second quarter and just absolutely lost my ass laughing. Georgia beats Florida State, as they should, even with a full roster. And Danny Cannell, just in case you're wondering, Georgia had 27 players out as well. Georgia wins 63-3. This game was over with about 10 minutes to go in the first half. Any news or notes on this one?
Yeah, it just shows of how obnoxious the self-perceived blue blood fans are. Like, good Lord. Like, shut up, Danny Cannell. And then shut up all these, fake people on Twitter who are like, oh, if we would have played in the playoff, we would have beat Michigan or Alabama. The fuck you wouldn't have. Get out of here.
You didn't beat Georgia. You didn't score a touchdown against Georgia. You lose all rights to possibly complain about the decision whenever you get your ass kicked that bad.
Florida State had 63 yards rushing. To put that into perspective, Georgia had 3 guys with more than 62 yards rushing. And it's not like they had a ton of carries. Milton had 9, Robinson the second had 7, and Edwards had 7. You could also go to Gunnar Stockton, who I have no idea who that guy is. He had 46. A tight end, Lad McConkey, had 27. Don't give me crap about you're missing your guys. You have in your team, and you would have done well. Like, everybody is going through this. Unless you're playing in one of the 2 semifinal games, everybody has transfers. Even to the local side, Mizzou had transfers. They still played. I'm sorry that your guys left and they didn't want to finish out their year, and you lost your top quarterback, and now you're playing your third string because even then your backup quarterback transferred, which was absolutely hilarious. A week out too, even better.
It does beg the question of, like, what are we doing with this transfer portal? Like, these kids shouldn't be allowed to transfer before bowl games. Like, if we're still going to honor bowl games as, like, these high and mighty things or the playoff, like, you shouldn't be allowed to transfer.
I mean, in reality, it has to be just like head coaches. If a head coach is leaving a team, and most of the time, he is going to leave after a bowl game, at least for the vast majority of people. And I especially think that once the playoff takes place, they're going to have to move the portal. You're going to have to make it to where you can declare for the portal or whatever you want to do, because I know that they have to do it before school starts, but they have to change it. There has to be ways around it.
Come on. I mean, look, these guys, what did Cardell Jones say? I'm not here to
They don't play school. They don't play school.
And it's not like you can't, like, change your classes for the first 3 weeks of the semester anyway.
Right.
Like, blow it out your ass that these guys need to be in the portal before. So,
and I think it was Brandon Kiley from 101 that he said that if you do the championship games on the if you do those on Thanksgiving weekend, and then you start the playoffs the first week of December, your championship game would be on New Year's, which it should be. I mean, that should be your opportunity to take advantage of the holiday, or however, whatever they want to do as far as the weekend goes. And then that means you could open the portal generally like the 1st of January or somewhere pretty damn close to it. And then kids don't have to be in classes until like the 10th for most schools. So that gives them a week and a half to 2 weeks to be able to declare. Plus, if they're already eliminated, they can declare. That's, I think, what you should be able to do. If you're in the playoff, you can declare whatever. The portal technically opens after the national championship game. Kids can go wherever they want to go. and then go from there. But they're going to have to do something different.
The portal, NIL, it's all a mess. Everything is kind of spiraling. I mean, it's great. Don't get me wrong. Like, pay the players. That's all cool. We're kind of in the Wild West right now. I don't know how sustainable and long it'll go on, especially when you have Ohio State players going on podcasts, essentially saying that they practiced a total of 3 times before the Cotton Bowl against Mizzou, and went on the air saying that people are decommitting because they wanted $1 million to play the line, and they said that they're not going to pay anyone on the line to do that. So there goes their recruiting on top of that for the future.
Well, I mean, since we're talking about this, the Blue Bloods have gotten smacked in the face, right? Like,
Oh yeah,
you know, you can't pay these kids under the table anymore. It's out in the open. Like, in the programs that have really good built-in state laws, they're the big university and they're only university in the States. I mean, yes, we can talk about how great Missouri's NIL has been, but Nebraska's is turning around. Ole Miss is doing really well, because I don't consider Mississippi State even on the level of Ole Miss. And when you look at it, it's a lot of these Blue Bloods complaining about it. Because,
and it always will be, because it just evened it out. The playing field is completely level now.
well, take somebody like the Yellowwood CEO, who is Auburn's biggest donor. Okay, we know this, right? Why isn't Auburn's NIL very good? Probably because what he was doing was just taking money from his company and giving it to Auburn. He can't do that anymore. So,
yeah, I think it makes Cameron, I do think you have a point that it is crazy and that it is the Wild Wild West, but I think it was before. You know, like it wasn't like this wasn't happening before. Maybe not to the scale that it is. I mean, hell, you have Matt Rule coming out and saying that a quarterback in the transfer portal, a good quarterback's going to cost you $1 million to $2 million. Like, that's a little bit more than we were having before. It used to be the $100 handshakes or the $100 or the key handshakes, and here's your truck, and you know, all that sort of thing. Like, we knew that went on before. Now it's just out in the open, and now everybody's taking advantage of it. And I think that a lot of the schools don't have a lot to do with it. I mean, they do, like, you know, they have the ability to tell players, hey, you can go to this guy and he's got this NIL set up, but the schools aren't paying anybody. And it used to be the schools that were paying them. So it is crazy, but honestly, the players deserve it. I mean, they generate the money. I truly think in the next 5 to 7 years, we're going to start hearing more about the top 68 schools using the Chip Kelly method of breaking off and being their own thing. I mean, that truly is what it's going to have to come down to.
I mean, and I'll say this, if you want the kids, the best players, to compete in the bowl games, you have to incentivize them.
Yeah.
Yes, being in the playoff is going to incentivize some kids. You want Marvin Harrison Jr., who, even though I don't think deserved the Blitnikoff and whatever, he's going to be the first receiver drafted, and I don't think he's probably worth it. But if you want to incentivize him to play in it, Ryan Day would have gotten a bonus if they won the Cotton Bowl. Eli Drinkowitz got a bonus for winning the Cotton Bowl. Pay those players. Mm-hmm. Give those guys some of that money. Kirby Smart got up there and railroaded against it. But you know what, dude? You got a $500,000 check. Like, get out of here. You could easily, now that you're paying the players essentially, do away with the scholarship method. Say, we're going to just literally pay you as employees. So this person, baseline is your scholarship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, this person, you have an NIL offer with Emos, with Sugar Fire, with all these companies, right? Whatever it is on the Kansas City side that Williams Winery is going to be dealing with here soon, you know, things like that. But to have, you know, a coach who makes $11 million who gets $500,000 for a bowl win, saying that players need to be loyal, get out of here, dude. You're not loyal to anybody but your checkbook.
Yeah, especially when he's getting ready to leave too. You know, like it works both ways. So you can't be mad at the kids for wanting to leave when the coaches do the exact same thing, which I think is one of the biggest points to make out of all of it.
Yeah, and Kenny, you made a good point about Missouri kind of being on the forefront of something for once with the NIL things. I think this just brings us to a perfect point in time to reboot one of the best shows ever made, Friday Night Lights. Based it in Missouri, could you imagine the deals that Buddy Garrity would be getting in and out? I mean, just all time. What he was doing back in the day with the dealership, just imagine it now. But he's an owner of a chain of emos, and I mean, it could be top tier. What if he gets involved with Shakespeare's? He gets them in there.
Glorious.
Lou Fuse, God, bring back Friday Night Lights.
All right, let's move on to the next one. The Lane Train rolls into Atlanta to face the Fighting Keegan. Oh, Jesus.
What?
God damn. It's been a day, boys. That's a good one to clip, Sean. The Fighting James Franklins. That's what we're going to go with. Another SEC, or one of the 3 SEC Big Ten matchups. This game finished close at 38-25, and I say close because it was a 13-point win. But in reality, it wasn't. Ole Miss pretty much ran away with it, other than some last-minute late, second half things that kind of came in for Penn State. But I mean, honestly, to me, Ole Miss is one of those up-and-coming teams. I would put Mizzou in that same category, especially in the SEC. And I think it shows good things with what they're trending towards. And speaking of NIL and transfer portal, I mean, they're another one of those teams that's taken a massive advantage with it. So I'm not shocked by this finish, but I thought it was a good game for a little bit and then kind of got out of hand.
There is no coach that quite fails upward, much like James Franklin.
Yeah.
Like, dude did wonders at Vanderbilt and then goes to Penn State, where he can do what he's doing and continue to do that for the rest of his career if he so chooses, because guess what? You're going to play Michigan and Ohio State every year, and then you're going to throw in Washington and Oregon and USC, and you know what? You can be second fiddle. It's going to be easy. And Penn State's going to be happy with it.
I watched 2 Penn State games all year, and they looked like absolute garbage both times. So I'm just glad we didn't draw them for the bowl game for Mizzou.
They were one of 2 teams I did not want to draw, and it was them and Liberty. I would have taken anybody else. I didn't care the result. I did not want to face Penn State and Liberty just because of the fear of, if they were to lose, it looks worse than if you were actually to win the game. So, I mean, Kenny, I think you have a point. James Franklin does fail upwards, but I'm looking at their schedule next year. They play UCLA at home. They go to LA and play USC. They play Ohio State at home, and they don't have to play Michigan. They're going to lose 3 games. They go to Wisconsin. That's probably a loss. I think Wisconsin will be pretty good. And then they don't play Nebraska. So with USC and UCLA, and even Oregon and Washington, it might be the end of the line with them. I mean, he's going to have to win. He can't do this 10-2 bullshit anymore. It's 7-9 bullshit, or 8-7, whatever the hell Jeff Fisher was. But he can't be 10-2 every year. Now it's just not going to happen. You're going to be playing powerhouses, bigger powerhouses, I would say, than Ohio State and Michigan.
It will be interesting. So the Big Ten's, there's some things going to shake out, and obviously we're going to talk about Michigan a little bit later. I don't think Harbaugh is going to be there next year. So what shakes out? Does somebody like James Franklin get hired at Michigan? Does Brian Kelly get hired at Michigan? Does it create a ripple effect in the SEC? There are so many things that I'm looking forward to in the Big Ten, because I think Oregon and Washington are going to dick slap some people in that conference, and they're not ready for it.
I mean, in reality, I think 3 of those 4 teams will. I think even USC. I mean, the style of play that those 3 teams have is completely different than anything in the Big Ten.
You are correct about that. I don't think USC is back to where they're at.
No, but I do think that they have the opportunity to come in, and they're going to pull talent no matter what. Talk about an NIL, a team loaded with NIL opportunities. I mean, Caleb Williams was making $4 million this year. So you have an opportunity that they'll be able to dive deep into the coffers to pay kids. And if they can start producing, I think you're going to have a team that's going to be able to be right there with Oregon and Washington. Cameron, what hat do you have on?
No, you're like the new city, John?
That's a very fancy hat. I thought it turned it around and it said SC on. I'm like, what the hell? All right, that one kind of a snoozer. Let's go to the second of the three. I guess technically it was the first because it was the first one that they played of the Big Ten SEC matchups. This one is near and dear to our hearts. You have the University of Missouri Tigers playing Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. And I left out a word on purpose.
The shade.
They don't own it anymore. Guys, this game was fantastic. It was very unexciting, I would say is a good word for it, if you were really wanting to have high scoring. But if you looked at what Ohio State's defense was, you had Mizzou still had their defense. Mizzou still had their full offense. I mean, this game was what we probably should have really expected as a low-scoring, really last minute. I would consider this a last minute. It was last 8 minutes, really. Finish, and Mizzou comes out 14-3.
All I heard in my head over and over again was the coach from Remember the Titans, Yost. You blitz every time, because Blake Baker brought the heat on the Ohio State Buckeyes. That line, which was like a top 10 line, I think, had no shot. And let's be honest, they are a referee's terrible call away from just routing the shit out of them.
Oh, for sure. That game could have been way worse for Ohio State. No doubt about that.
And say what you will, it was their third string quarterback. Well, you know what? Sometimes players get hurt. It sucks for that young man, Devin Brown. Good quarterback, probably going to be great at Ohio State. But you know what? You just didn't have it. You didn't have it. But hell, Brady Cook didn't have it for 3.5 quarters either.
Mm-hmm. He went full Brady Strongheart there. Just carrying us with his legs, doing absolutely nothing with his arm.
I mean, the legs are a very good weapon, and I'll tell you what, that fourth down, they ran it twice, that fake shovel pass, and they bit on it both times. That play is deadly. Mm-hmm. Like, you probably know it's coming, and you still can't. You're still going to fall for it. But I will tell you what, he had his nuts in a wheelbarrow with that throw to Burden to get the second touchdown, because wow. I mean, you're throwing to a spot, you're hoping it's there, and the one angle, and you're like, the one angle from the front, looking his view, you're like, how did he do it? You flip that angle,
and then you see the low behind camera. Oh my god!
Yeah, and that guy's a little bit too far in front of it. But man, what a throw!
It's amazing when you actually decide to give the ball to Luther Burden. When are we going to have a discussion about him never going back for a punt return ever again?
It needs to happen.
Has he seen a punt all year that he wants to return?
No, I think the very first game is when he had one. That was it.
So if you paid attention to Mizzou football at all, and I challenge you to go back and watch any of it, is whenever they needed a situation where the punt had to be caught, KAD was back there. Luther Burden was not back there.
No.
But if they had a situation where like, okay, maybe punts it to the 40 and they get a good roll, we'll put Luther back there and see what he can do. But hey, they're going to pin us back. Let's put KAD out there. He's going to catch the ball.
What's crazy to me is I was there watching the game live. Ohio State would have been much better off if they would have kept running the football. Trayvon Henderson had a really good game. I think he had somewhere around 70 or 80 yards, something like that. And he really started out hot. He was averaging about 3 or 4 yards a carry. And towards the end of the game, especially once the third string quarterback came in for Ohio State, I mean, that kid, I'm really concerned if he has an arm or not. Like, I didn't think he could throw for a while. But they ran the ball well, and they took the ball out of his hands, which to me, I was talking to the guy behind me. I'm like, they got to run it. Like Kenny, you said it. Baker was bringing the blitz every single time. If they went outside and they moved the wide receivers either across the field or just have them keep running, there was daylight all day, and we could not stop him. Like, he was getting chunks of yards. if they would have kept with that running game, that would have been a very interesting finish for sure. Like, I think they would have at least got a touchdown out of it and made this a one-score game.
Well, I do think Henderson was below his average for the year. I think his average was like 5 yards, like 4.8,
Something
4.9
like that, yeah.
yards per carry. So at 4.3, obviously you're talking about almost a whole yard difference. Big game, he kind of really didn't show up against really good teams, and just shows you what happens when you have a really good stout line.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what I'll say about that kid: is his name Kleinholtz?
Yeah.
Kleinholtz. Ohio State can say he was the third string quarterback all they want, but he would have been the highest rated recruit to ever go to the University of Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
Point in case.
Well, I mean, it doesn't say much about Kansas either. So.
We're not both punching down on this podcast.
No, absolutely, especially when it comes to the University of Kansas. But my point remains is that these blue bloods, especially the Florida States and the Ohio States, and all these fans that complained about, the kids opt out, they're the third string. When you talk about having such a recruiting advantage, you're going to naturally have talent. And these universities are just churning out 4- and 5-star talent. Most of the time it's 4-star talent. But it just shows what happens when a program like a Missouri gets bought in. Drinkowitz is getting some talent. I fully expect them to make that next leap. And that might be glass half full. That might be rose-colored glasses as obviously an alumni, but I think they're ready to make the next step.
Yeah, and I think we could put a couple more minutes into this topic in general. I mean, the way that he is bringing in recruits and the way that they are making statements in games. I mean, I know they lost to LSU and they lost to Georgia, but they didn't lose to those teams like they used to. They put up a fight really to the last 2 minutes against LSU, and then the interception at the end for a touchdown, and then they were already losing at that point anyways. That made that game on its out of any sort of one-score game. And then the Georgia game, I mean, they hung with them the entire time too, and they almost beat Georgia last year. So I get it that we're not the blue blood. NIL is going to help us with that, but I agree. I think they're changing the momentum, and this program is going back to what it was in the early 2000s. 2006, 2007, 2008 with Chase and them. I think that is where this program is heading. It doesn't need a national title. It really doesn't. It would be fantastic if they were able to compete for one in the new playoff scenario. If they got to a semifinal, that would be absolutely incredible. They need to make the playoffs, and they need to win a playoff game. That is it. That's all that I expect from the University of Missouri.
I don't even think you need to win a playoff game this first year.
I wouldn't be opposed to it.
But I think being in the position for next year, you're looking at some teams maybe taking a step back, or Washington potentially taking a step back. We don't know what Ohio State's going to be. Georgia's going to be Georgia. Alabama seems to be taking a step back, and we'll talk about that here in a moment. The time is right, and honestly, to me, I don't need to win the SEC either. I just need to make the playoff. I don't want to play in the SEC championship, because if you're looking down the barrel of an 11-1 season, potentially, if everything goes your way, and then you have to play in the SEC championship game and you get up against a Georgia, is it better to not play in that game and have one loss, or play in that game and potentially lose, have two, and get knocked out?
We get to play Alabama next year, and the way the schedule's set up, we have a real good chance to be undefeated going into that game. Mm-hmm. And that could be a really big moment for this team. Again, I mean, if we could knock off Alabama, it's at Bama too, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Correct? I mean, if we could go in and knock them off at Bama, be undefeated, that would be even more of a spark plug going into this program.
I mean, at that point, you're looking at the number one team in the country.
Yeah, I mean, I don't need us to win. We do have to make the playoff next year, I think, for sure. Win the SEC would be awesome. I don't think it has to happen. I do think that they need to win a playoff game, though, to further shake off the dust of being, oh, it's just Mizzou, who cares?
You know, and Kenny, I agree with your point about not going to the SEC championship, and I never actually thought about it that way. But I don't, I think that being an 11-win team, I mean, you look at the top 16 or top 12 this year. Oklahoma was 12 at 10-3. So Ole Miss was 11-2. Penn State was 10-3. So if they have 10 wins, the only teams that were 10 wins that were left out of it was LSU, Arizona, Notre Dame, Louisville, and let's throw SMU and Liberty in. And technically Liberty got in because they're the G5. Iowa had 10, but I think they got 10 with they lost in the bowl game. Oklahoma State won their
I think LSU's 10th win was also the bowl game.
Was their bowl game too. So, and Arizona's was too. So you're talking about if you get 9 to 10 wins, you're almost guaranteed to be in that top 12. Like that, there's almost no chance that you get knocked out. And I never thought about it that way. That would you rather be a 10-2 team that goes to the SEC championship game, or would you rather be a 10-2 team that doesn't go to the SEC championship game and still gets into the playoffs?
Yes.
And honestly, I think I would rather be the 10-2 that doesn't go to the playoff or doesn't go to the SEC championship.
Yep.
All right, so let's go to the third and final Big Ten SEC matchup. Kenny, you said it before we got on here that the NFL scriptwriters have now taken over for the college football scriptwriters and have made this a fantastic semifinal matchup. Just as everybody thought, Michigan beat Alabama, but it did go to overtime. So let's not fully count ourselves wrong on that one. Michigan comes out in overtime with the 27-20 victory. Not what I thought, and not what any of us thought, right?
That was a sloppy game.
Yeah.
Just all over. Both teams played not clean football at all.
My comment was actually about the game we'll talk about next. But, I'll let a naysayer know.
Oh, my. Easy, Reese Davis.
Dude, the fact that he fell for that shit, come on, dude.
Yeah, that was terrible.
Even Pat McAfee got it.
Well, I mean, he was in a locker room in the NFL, so I mean,
he knows.
He gets it. Alabama looked bad.
They did.
I'm just gonna say it. Alabama looked bad. I wasn't impressed with Michigan though. To me, this was not the jewel of the game, and I know it's the Rose Bowl and it's the best bowl game ever. It was okay. Yeah, Alabama didn't look good. That fourth and goal play, what a horrible play call.
So bad.
Also,
I think if that snap wasn't bad, it wouldn't have looked as bad of a play call.
Well, hold on here. So there was a video that from the all 22 version that I forget who it was that posted it afterwards, that Milroe was not supposed to go up the middle. They had right guard.
The tailback was like, or I think it was a tailback. He was like
no, it was the
around.
guard. Yeah, he was wide open. If he would have cut left and gone around the end, he was wide open for a touchdown with the guard that was pulling, and even the defensive end had creeped up past him, so he would have been clear into the end zone. But yes, terrible, terrible play call from your own 4. And really, what they had first and 4. Basically, first and goal from the 4, or was it second and third down were from the 4, something like that. But they were close twice, and they still couldn't do it. Like, that's terrible play calling. And I will say this: I believe that Alabama had a good run game, and they should have stuck to that more. Looking at the stats, they had 172 yards rushing. McClellan had 87. He did have a whole bunch on one run. He had 34, so that makes up part of that. But Jalen Milroe and that wide receiver group, to me, that might be the worst wide receiver group that Alabama's had in a long time. And really, their best wide receiver was Burton. And he's not that great. Like, that was one of the things when he transferred from Georgia that I thought would really help Alabama out. And he did not have a fantastic season like everybody kind of thought he would. And Milroe is not a great passer, which is kind of interesting. Like, I thought he would have been a way better passer than he is. But if they would have ran the ball, I think it would have been a totally different ballgame.
Somebody talked about that with the Mizzou game. It's like they tried to force the pass. Well, run the ball. You have really good running backs. Like both. I mean, Alabama's you're right. The last, what do you want to say, 7-8 years, you're talking about Jalen Waddle won a Biletnikoff, Devonta Smith won a Biletnikoff, and he won a Heisman. Who else did you have there? You had Jerry Jeudy was there. Like, you had some really big wide receivers, and they just don't have it right now. But they probably got some kid from, bumfuck Arkansas who's a 15-star. So,
Well, they also had Tua and Hurts throwing the ball.
Right, and that's it too. Is
hurt.
that they really haven't had a bad quarterback, and even Mac Jones was a fantastic college quarterback. So like they haven't had a bad quarterback in a while either. And I'm not saying that Milroe is bad by any means. I think he's a good quarterback. He's just not what they're used to having there. I still think there's time for Archie Manning to transfer there, but that's a different topic. So let's go to the second game, which by far was the best game of the two. Not what I thought. I thought this game would be a lot wider point spread. Hence the reason I went to bed in the third quarter because I thought it was over. But Washington pulls the win out over Texas, 37-31. What is Matthew McConaughey's title? Minister of Culture.
All right.
All right. He is the AAA specialist. The Minister of Culture could not help the Longhorns out in this one, but it was a fantastic game. This is another quarterback in Michael Penix Jr. that I think is slowly increasing his draft stock, other than being left-handed.
I wrote stats down for the first time, I think.
Go for it.
History. Michael Penix Jr., 430 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a RTG, what we figured out was kind of like the new quarterback rating of 188, whatever that means.
QBR was 97.3.
Yeah. So for the year, Michael Penix threw for almost 4,700 yards, 35 touchdowns. He did have 9 interceptions. QBR on average of an 86, basically. Your Heisman should have won it. Michael Penix Jr. Just phenomenal game. He's got one of the best low-key receivers in the nation I'm going to butcher his name. Odunze, thank you. Michael Penix Jr. is the best quarterback coming out of college football this year.
He looked incredible. I mean, any time that he was throwing the ball downfield, despite his throwing motion looking ridiculous with him being left-handed.
We'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to share a tweet to you guys that makes it different.
Anytime that he threw the ball deep, it was an absolute dime. Couldn't have been placed any better. Landing perfectly in the breadbasket. That was an absolute show that he put on, and probably the most impressive thing that I saw. I wish I was able to stay awake a little longer. Shout out to living in the Central Time Zone and starting a game that late. Super cool of you guys. But, impressive by him.
I have a point on that. They shouldn't let the Rose Bowl dictate when these games are going to be played. I know you want the sun to set, but guess what? Tough shit. Like, it was a holiday. One of these games should have kicked off at 11. Like, come on.
We got to work in the morning.
Yeah, no shit. I fell asleep in the third quarter and woke up because I kind of like everybody else. Like, I thought at this point, I thought Texas was done, and I was like, okay, Washington's just going to run out the clock. And I woke up and Texas is marching down the field. I'm like, what the hell did I miss? But great play.
I think I woke up from your dad's text message.
Yeah, I think that's probably what woke me up too. I couldn't believe Jimbo was still up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I'll share you guys I'll have to find the tweet that I saw about his throwing motion. If you flip his throwing motion around and he throws right-handed, he looks good. There's no issue with it. He honestly looks like Sam Bradford throwing the football. It is a mirror image to it. But I agree. Like, I don't know if he is the best quarterback coming out. He's damn near up there. Like, I think he's better than Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels is Lamar Jackson. Give him 2 years, and he may turn into something pretty good. I think, like I said, Jake Locker is my Bo Nix comparison. Derek May is the iffy one for me. Honestly, I think he's Mac Jones. I really do. He reminds me a lot of that. He could be Trubisky too. Yep, I can see that too. And then Caleb Williams, I have no confidence in that kid whatsoever. I think he's Kyler Murray 2.0.
Listen, I think what's going to happen is I think the Bears are going to ultimately fuck this up and take Caleb Williams when what they should do is what Big Cat said.
Trade it.
Trade it. Try to get Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
And trade down, right? Like, do it. Move away from the pick. You're going to get another one. I think if I was – they were talks about like the Giants looking at Penix. I would be all over that if I was the Giants. In all honesty, if I was, let's say somebody like the Saints, I'd probably be all over it. Because even though eyeliner Kirk Cousins is there for the time being, he's not always going to be there.
They still got Jameis.
That's the Vikings.
No. Eyeliner Kirk Cousins.
Derek Carr. I didn't hear the eyeliner part. Sorry, you cut out. Yes, that 100% is true.
I mean, Minnesota too. I mean, Kirk Cousins isn't going to play forever. I mean, I'm
going to throw a name out here. What about the Jets?
Well,
you have Aaron Rodgers for a year.
I'm not touching this one with a pole.
Zach Wilson is probably not going to be there. I mean, if you're the Jets, I'd be looking for a quarterback. But either way, back to this game. The interesting thing that I thought from Texas is that I think they are better than I thought they would be. I did not think that Texas would be able to compete, and maybe that was Washington backing off a little bit or whatever it was in the second half. Again, I fell asleep, so I don't know how really the second half went until really the final two drives. But I think they're better than I thought they were. I thought Washington was going to house Texas. I really, truly did. And again, that's why I went to bed. But to see them being able to come back, I mean, not that I think they're a top third SEC team next year, but they're a top quarter SEC team next year. Or not a top quarter, they're a top third. Sorry, backwards. Again, long day, guys.
Hard.
Long days, and math is not my. I can't do math live. You guys know how that goes. But yeah, I think they're up there competing with Mizzou and Ole Miss. I think Georgia, Bama, they're right there.
The longer I sat
Texas
on
is. Go ahead, Cameron. Sorry.
The longer I sat on this game, the more I thought Texas was going to win. I ended up sprinkling some of the Mizzou winnings. Shout out to me on on Texas money line, along with the over.
Good job.
Thought it was going to be a shootout. Hit the over, so that was great. I thought Texas was going to win. Didn't work out. Washington made me a believer. The longer I sat on it, the more I thought Washington wasn't actually that good, and I was wrong. Hand up.
Washington has had a knack of making games that they should have won look a lot closer than it is. But here's ultimately my point, and I'll jump ahead. I think Washington wins next week because I think they beat arguably a top 3 team in Oregon twice.
Yeah.
I don't think Michigan's that good still. So I'm going to agree with you that I think they win.
Yeah,
I think Washington's biggest problem is that they take the foot off the pedal and let Michigan back into it. It could get dangerous for them.
4.5 point dogs right now.
The only chance that I think Michigan has is if Michigan runs the football. I think that truly is it because it's going to slow down the game. It's going to keep Penix off the field. And I think that Washington's D-line, other than, I forget what his last name is, it starts with a T. I want to say it's like, I don't know, that's an S. I know my
I think that's what his nickname. I know who you're talking about. He's
it's
the
like,
kid
it's like Trippier or Tristan or something like that.
Is that the kid whose dad died and they had a tearjerker game day
maybe
presentation?
Yeah, it might have been. Yeah. But I mean, that is going to be the weakness, is that if Michigan can run the football and keep Penix off the field, then they're going to have an opportunity. But I think you have a totally different passing game than what Alabama brought to the table, and I don't think that Michigan can compete with it. Again, I think that next year your Big Ten is going to be dominated by Oregon, Washington, and probably Ohio State, followed by USC. That is how I think that, and that's because I think that Jim Harbaugh is also going to be out of Michigan and be in the NFL. But I think that's how it ends up, and I'll jump on the wagon too, 3 for 3 that Washington's going to win this game next week.
I think if you're Washington and you win the coin toss, you should take the football and you should ram it down their throats.
Yep, go put 7 on the board right away.
Score within a minute 30.
Yeah.
Take a deep shot first play of the game.
Bingo.
I agree. All right, so let's jump to the guys that actually get paid to play football by the team that they are playing for. And let's go to the NFL. A couple things that I want to hit on. First off, the first one is Carolina Panthers owner Dave Tepper is fined $300,000 by the NFL after he threw a drink onto some Jacksonville Jaguar fans at the end of the loss on Sunday afternoon. He was fined $300,000. His net worth is apparently $20.6 billion. And according to Darren Ravel, who's very good with math, that means that is the equivalent of the average American losing $1.77.
Oh, I thought it was worse than that. I thought it was like $1.37.
Oh.
Where's the fine for Mrs. Mahomes for last year?
Right.
What was she fined? Kenny, as the resident Chiefs fan, would you like to issue a statement? She was spraying champagne out of the box onto opposing fans last year.
I don't care what she does.
What about Taylor Swift?
You jump over to T Swift?
Haven't we all? But yeah, I think that is an absolutely ridiculous fine. And I know that there are restrictions as to what the NFL can actually fine. And because the owners are basically the ones that select Roger Goodell and make sure that all of that stuff goes through him. Yeah, okay, cool. It is what it is. Like you can only fine a guy so much, but I mean, sweet Jesus, like you couldn't have done anything. That's nothing. That's less than a cup of coffee. That is probably 10 times less than the drink that he actually, poured out. I mean,
I think he should be forced to buy the best season tickets at the Jaguar Stadium for this fan for like the next 10 years.
So that was what I was kind of wondering. I wonder if the fan could actually press charges against him.
I'm sure
not that he would win, but I mean, hell,
sure he could.
If somebody can get $1 million from McDonald's because their coffee says hot and they spill their coffee on them, I mean, come on, gotta be something there.
I mean, that's such a rich guy move to throw a drink on someone.
For sure.
Not to go back to airing the grievances. I'm not throwing my $18 tall boy on someone over anything.
Definitely not.
I watched a guy, I think my sophomore year, throw a hot dog that he had covered in mustard on a Nebraska fan. And I turned to him, I said, "You paid like $8 for that. What are you doing, you idiot?"
That is a waste.
But was it Dour Dog Night?
No, $8 would have fed me for 2 days.
The video of the Phillies fans on Dour Dog Night getting into a foo fight
is fantastic. All right, so that was just one of the ones I wanted to hit on. The other one is it is weekend 18 in the NFL playoffs. There are a lot of teams that are eliminated that are still fighting for a draft pick. I think there's something like 8 or 9 teams that are all within one game of the second draft pick. The Panthers have locked up number 1 with only 2 wins this year. But you still have a lot of teams fighting for playoffs. I'm not going to go through all of them. I believe they said the number was half the league, which puts us at 15, 16 teams, something like that. The best one, in my opinion, is the Steelers. They're 9-7. Decent season for them. Another winning season. I think that's 17 under Mike Tomlin. Just for a hint of what their scenarios are for them to be able to do this. And again, not running through every single one, but for the Steelers to be able to make the playoffs, Pittsburgh has to win plus Buffalo loses, or Pittsburgh wins and Jacksonville loses, or Pittsburgh wins and Houston and Indianapolis tie. Pittsburgh ties plus plus Jacksonville loss plus Houston, Indianapolis doesn't end in a tie, any sort of scenario. Or last but not least, Jacksonville loses plus Denver wins plus Houston and Indianapolis do not end in a tie. Some of these scenarios are absolutely ridiculous. I'm excited for Week 18. I think this is going to be a fantastic week.
Cue up the Always Sunny in Philadelphia picture of Charlie Day in front of the board smoking a cigarette.
Pepe Silva.
Yeah.
I mean, the hardest thing for Seattle. So I'm on the NFL's website and looking at probability. So if they lose, they have a 14% chance. So right now, on average, they're at 44% chance to make the playoffs. But if you look at it, Jacksonville's got 73. Bills are almost assured at 85%. And the Colts are the next closest to them. Actually, the Texans have a 53% chance. The thing is, those teams all have basically a 100% chance to make the playoffs if they win.
Yeah.
Even if the Steelers win, they only have a 63% chance to make the playoffs. So they've got to have a lot of things go right, but it's hilarious listening to those scenarios. I just don't see – I think Tennessee's packed it in, so I think the Jaguars are winning and clinching that division.
Yep.
The Bills are at Miami, and the question is if Miami takes it off. I mean,
I would.
You're probably not going to play Tyreek Hill after what happened today. For those of you who live under a rock, Tyreek Hill's house burnt down today.
With Rick Ross doing commentary.
What? No way.
Yeah, they're like,
I didn't see
everywhere in
that.
Florida.
That's incredible.
And the Colts play the Texans. So, I mean, basically, that's the AFC South right there. So,
yeah, I mean, the entire AFC South is still alive other than the Titans. If the Jags win, they're automatically in. And then the Colts need help, obviously. They need Buffalo to lose. But, I mean, if I'm Miami, I don't play my starters. The worst that I can finish is third place in that division. I'm going to do that all day long. And especially because that means I'm probably going to end up facing what they're going to eventually, I think, face the Bills, right? Or maybe they get the Chiefs, depending on how the Chiefs finish. But, you know, I'd play my odds that the Chiefs are probably going to win, but they're not playing Mahomes and a lot of their starters. To me, I truly think the most interesting spot becomes the NFC. You have the Falcons at 7-9 that are still available to win. You know, obviously Tampa has to lose, and New Orleans both have to lose for Atlanta to even have a chance. But for the Falcons, who are a team that have been absolutely terrible this year and actually have the second lowest point differential in the NFC besides the Seahawks that are in a playoff spot, it's incredible to me how many of these teams are still open. I mean, this probably has the most parity out of all the leagues right now. It's insane. Like, it'll be fun to watch. That's all I gotta say. I'm excited to see all the finishes, even with the team sitting guys.
My Seattle winning the going on top of San Francisco did not age well.
Nope, definitely didn't. I was there with you. Yep.
In the middle of a
We'll
summer.
review those next week.
I completely agree. If you're Miami, you don't even bother to prep for Buffalo. Kansas City's locked into 3 seed. They can't do anything, so you're playing them if you lose. Just immediately start prepping for Kansas City and Arrowhead. Try and get people healthy. I don't know why they would even bother to risk any injuries getting re-aggravated, trying to rush people back. Yeah, I think Buffalo's going to win, and I think Buffalo's still going to win the Super Bowl. I'm sticking by that. I think they're getting hot at the right time.
not with Mid Allen as their quarterback.
He's played great the past couple weeks. MVP.
Yeah. I mean, they've also had a stacked back end of the schedule too. I mean, their games that have been big games, they haven't played well in.
It's a real shame that Sean's not on today, just so we could just rub it in his face a little more that Philly is collapsing. Someone should probably do a wellness check on him. I believe at one point he said if they don't win all 3 of their last games, that he's going to start burning things down. So it's going to be around January 6th, so people really need to check in on him.
Oh, God.
Sure he's doing okay.
That would be terrible. We don't need that. He's our editor. All right, so that wraps up everything we've got. Any last words for you fellas?
Yes, all these AFC games that are in a scenario should all be playing at the same time.
Oh, yeah, that would be awesome.
I don't know what the schedule is, and
it should have been flexed no matter what.
Yeah, they should definitely flex all of this. Like, oh, man, so like Seattle, Houston,
Indy got flexed.
they're playing on Saturday, but the Steelers play before them. So theoretically, if the Steelers lose, there is one of the 4 in the hunt teams out, and basically winning, you're in at that point.
The interesting game may actually end up being Buffalo and Miami, because Buffalo could be eliminated and you could have Miami that is absolutely just sitting everybody on their team, and it's just a shit show at the end. DeMar Hamlin's going to be returning kicks. It's going to be fantastic.
Is there a scenario where Buffalo gets eliminated?
Yeah.
I think they can.
If they lose, and I think Indy wins, I think they're out.
No, I'm pretty sure they can't be eliminated before the game. At the game they have a chance to win, because if no matter what, if obviously one of the AFC South teams are going to win, because don't Indy and Houston play each other?
Correct.
So you have that game, no matter what, produces a 10-win team. You'll have the Jaguars that can have 10, and the Steelers that can have 10. The Steelers play on Saturday. So if the Steelers win, and they're playing the Ravens, who I'm sure are going to sit a bunch of people, that would be just the absolute genius move to make right there, especially Lamar Jackson. The Steelers could have 10 wins. I mean, in theory, when Buffalo goes into that game at 7 o'clock on Sunday night, you could have three teams that have 10 wins besides them, and they have to win to get in.
God, I love football.
Yeah. Who's the guy on NBC that does the political stuff of, like, he has a 60% chance to win if Missouri gets this many votes?
That would be Steve Kornacki.
That's his name. I couldn't think I wanted to say Zarniak, but I know that's not right.
No, this is his year, man.
You probably just know the Fox News guys.
This is what he lives to.
Negative Ghost Rider.
Fox News. They do the same thing on Fox?
Oh, yeah, they
I
do the same thing
would
on
assume so.
all the
I didn't
channels.
think Fox News was smart enough. Anyways,
But-
do you guys have anything else to go? Cameron, plug our socials.
Yeah, you can follow us on Twitter at PodRideThePine. You can follow us on Instagram at pod_RideThePine. Follow us on TikTok at RTP-Kenny. We're on YouTube at Ride the Pine Pod. Our podcast is named Ride the Pine. You can find us anywhere you can get your podcast. Keep an eye out for maybe some streaming capabilities coming from us within, weeks, maybe. Keep an eye out. Maybe something for a national championship game if we ever figure out technology all the way. Shout out to Sean for all of his hard work behind the scenes. That's all I got. Those are our
All right, well, let's wrap this bad boy up. Next week, we're going to have our – go ahead, Kenny. What do you got?
Nope. I was just going to say we forgot to mention the Pop-Tart.
Oh, we did.
Oh.
We'll bring that up
Cheez
next
It
week.
getting a plug at the last second.
was pretty good too. Next week we're gonna have our our NFL review and see how much of a shit show that was with our picks at the beginning of the year. We will have NFL playoff talk, college football championship. Maybe we'll talk baseball. Maybe we'll talk basketball. Last thing I want to say: shout out to @OhioSportsman4 on Twitter. Probably never gonna listen to us, but my God, your life might suck, because you live in Ohio and you seem to think that you are part of the team and claim that you have 17 championships and 8 trophies. My God. People are fucking stupid.
Is he one of those guys that refers to himself as "we won that game"?
He has a tweet from December 27th that says, and I quote, "It's nice knowing every day I wake up, I have 8 trophies sitting on the shelf." I'm going to go out on a limb.
League?
Just by the photo of this gentleman, he does not have any trophies that mean anything other on his.
He could be a Washer player.
I would like to see
Trophies
his diploma from Ohio State.
Community college.